This video will contain spoilers from the world and story of Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero. Please beware.
I think we can all agree that Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero can both be terrifying games. Not only is this caused by the, fear of deep dark waters, which we all have to a certain extent, it is also probably caused by the humongous monsters which lurk within those depths. Perhaps the most interesting amongst these will of course be the Leviathans, creatures so large that they absolutely dwarf the player and presumably any of their vehicles, and rank amongst the most dangerous things that you could possibly encounter on the entirety of planet 4546b. And well, with the deep dive update that dropped into Below Zero pretty recently, we now have another Leviathan in the game to look at. And well, hopefully as of right now, these things are, at least for a bit, going to stay where they are, so we can analyze some lore about them. That's right, today we're going to be talking about the Shadow Leviathan. Now this is not an official lore video because this thing is probably not done. As an example, it is still missing a PDA entry, which is definitely going to give us more about it. However, this video is aimed to do a little bit of speculating, not only into the lore of the Leviathan itself, but also what this could mean for other fauna on the planet. So with that out of the way, hop into your sea truck, watch for that big thing lurking in the shadows, and let's go. Now to start us off, yes, as of right now you can find two Shadow Leviathans in the game. One in the Crystal Caves, and one in the Fabricator Caverns. These things, unsurprisingly, ranks amongst aggressive fauna, as in, if you come close, chances of you leaving again are pretty slim. Looking at them from the outside, they have an elongated, long body, which is kind of dark purple / grey in color, and resembles something akin to an eel, much more than, well, a regular fish. This is also supported by the way it moves, using several fins on the back of its tail and a rather wavy movement pattern of its whole body to propel through the water at pretty solid speeds. Now obviously the outstanding feature is the mouth, which can be found at the bottom of the body, surrounded by rows of mandibles, with the center itself glowing in the dark and being one of the first things you might notice in the darkness ahead of you, and also presumably being the last place you end up seeing if this thing catches a whiff of you. Now there are 7 pairs of large claws on each side, and I think it's pretty obvious that these are used to capture the prey and hold it down for the inner mouth to be able to consume it. But now let's talk comparisons, because this thing is definitely aggressive, and the name itself would have you believe that it might be the most dangerous thing on the planet, but that's really not the case. While in length it reaches 60 meters, which is definitely very solid. In fact, it is 5 meters longer than the Reaper Leviathan, which in my opinion is one of the scariest Leviathans in the game. This thing is not actually that dangerous. Well, speaking comparatively, of course. It seems that despite that impressive looking mouth, it does not actually have that much bite power, coming in at only 75 damage dealt to the player, which is actually 5 less than the Reaper, and, well, a lot less than the Sea Dragon, which will insta-kill you if it happens to bite you. This makes me believe that, even without the PDA scan, we could probably say that this thing mostly doesn't feed on incredibly hard things, such as for example the rock punchers which can be found around the area, because who knows, it might actually just not be able to crack their shell. Because of this, I would probably have to say that it is something much more similar to an adult Ghost Leviathan, which simply feeds on microorganisms in the wild. Now, sticking with the theme of being an eel or a snake, it also seems that Shadow Leviathans prefer relatively tight areas, as both the ones that you can find live in what are pretty constricting caves, and they like to kind of slither around, wrap around some of the columns, and hide in the, well, shadows in between everything. And I think we can actually take this even a step further and go a little bit into some territory of theories. Many people, including the wiki, have considered how interesting it is that this thing would have all the mandibles at the bottom of its body. Now couple that with the very worm-like body, and it's not much of a stretch to say that perhaps a long-distant ancestor of this creature could have even lived on land or underground. That's right, imagine this thing, but with way more mandibles serving as legs, similar to something like a millipede just burrowing through ground resembling the ice worm. Which brings me to another point. What is this thing related to? Well, on one hand, we see the T kind of shape of its body, and the movement, which does to an extent resemble something like the Ghost Leviathan. At the same time, we have the possibility of it at some point burrowing through the ground, which could make it related to the ice worm and potentially the ancient skeleton that we can find in the first game. As of right now, I don't think we can necessarily say which of these things this thing would be closer to, but at a high level, I think it is safe to say that just as basically all the Leviathans that we can find on the planet, it is to a certain extent related to, well, both of those things, with the particular branch that later became Shadow Leviathans simply preferring to live in the dark, small caverns underwater. Yes, there are also some similarities to the Reaper, for example with the mandibles. However, as it appears, the Reaper, similar to a lot of the other Leviathans, has developed to have a front-facing mouth, which seemingly gives its jaw more power. Now, to finish this off, I want to go into a little bit of headcanon, and when the Shadow Leviathan was first introduced to us, me and I think a lot of other people considered this to be the thing that you can find in the Abyss. We thought that this could be the most terrifying creature that you can encounter in Subnautica Below Zero, but now I'm kind of starting to doubt that. Looking at the fact that its bite only does 75 damage, which is effectively the same amount of damage that the Chelicerae does, you have to wonder if there are plans for something that would become Below Zero's equivalent of the Sea Dragon to eventually be implemented. This would mean that not only is the Shadow Leviathan not the most aggressive creature that we will see in Subnautica Below Zero, if we take it a step further, we could even presume that the same way as Reapers were simply the prey of dragons, perhaps the Chelicerae and the Shadow Leviathan are once again prey to something bigger, something more dangerous, and something much more terrifying that lives somewhere out there in the dark. But with that thought, I'm going to end this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of speculation. It was a bit of a lore mix together with just some theorizing, but I didn't want to make it a full lore video up until we get the PDA entry confirmation and hopefully a 3D model that we can look at to observe all those extra tiny details. If you have any details that I missed, or you have theories of your own that you would like to cover about not just the Shadow Leviathan, but also all the other terrifying huge creatures that we can find in the game, please make sure to leave those down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read those. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider liking or subscribing to the channel. Both of those would be very much appreciated. And with that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.